As I said, it's not one thing, it was many things. But I did not like that he'd had meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, no.
For nearly 3 decades, Melinda Gates lived inside one of the most powerful marriages the modern world had ever seen. From the outside, everything looked untouchable. Perfect smiles, global influence, unimaginable wealth. She stood beside Bill Gates, helped shape billion-dollar philanthropy, and raised 3 children under relentless public attention. But behind the doors no camera could enter, something was quietly breaking. When the divorce was announced in 2021, the world froze. Headlines screamed $76 billion, one of the most expensive separations in history. People speculated about scandals, betrayals, and power. Yet Melinda Gates said nothing until now. At 61, she finally broke her silence, not to talk about money, not to assign blame, but to reveal the truth she carried for years. What she confessed changed how people understood her marriage, her pain, and her strength. This is not a story about divorce. It's about the moment a woman chooses honesty over silence, when the whole world is watching. Melinda Ann French was born on August 15, 1964, in Dallas, Texas, into a household built on discipline, curiosity, and quiet ambition. She was the second of 4 children in a family that valued education and hard work above comfort or excess. Her father was an aerospace engineer, a man who contributed to the Apollo space program, helping send Americans to the moon. Her mother stayed home, managing the family with steady routines, clear expectations, and emotional warmth. They lived comfortably, but not extravagantly. Her father understood early that raising 4 children meant planning far ahead. In the late 1970s, he began investing in rental properties, not to chase wealth, but to secure college educations for his children. That decision changed Melinda's life in ways she wouldn't fully understand until much later. By the time she was 10 years old, weekends were not about play, they were about work. She held paintbrushes, scrubbed floors, cleaned apartments, and learned how responsibility feels when it is shared. By 12, she was helping with bookkeeping, learning to balance numbers that most children never even saw. No one framed it as a lesson, it was simply life. Independence became instinct long before it became a concept. Around that same time, something extraordinary entered the family home and quietly changed the direction of Melinda Gates's life. Her father brought home an Apple II computer released in 1977. At 14, she began using it for a practical reason, organizing rental property records. She typed numbers, tracked expenses, and followed instructions. But very quickly, the blinking cursor captured her attention. Curious, she started experimenting on her own. Without classes or guidance, she taught herself basic programming, typing commands late into the night and watching the machine respond. Each successful line of code felt like solving a puzzle. Logic turned into results, and results built confidence. At a time when very few girls were encouraged to touch computers, Melinda felt something unexpected: comfort. The computer didn't care who she was or how old she was. It didn't judge. It only responded to logic. That fairness mattered. Technology felt honest, predictable, and calm in a world that often wasn't. Those quiet hours shaped how she saw the future. She began to understand that technology could create opportunity, organize complexity, and open doors. Long before titles or recognition, that early connection planted a belief that would guide her for the rest of her life. When she entered Ursuline Academy in 1978, she thrived in the pressure of academic challenge. The school was one of the first in Texas to integrate computers into classrooms, and Melinda immediately gravitated toward them. Math and science became her strongest subjects, and teachers quickly noticed her seriousness. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy, but she was relentless. In 1982, she graduated as valedictorian, carrying with her not only perfect grades, but also a growing belief that technology could shape the future, and that she wanted to be part of it. Soon after, she took her first paid job tutoring younger students in math and programming. In the early 1980s, it was rare to see a teenage girl teaching code. Yet, she did it with confidence, discovering that helping others understand complex ideas strengthened her own clarity. That confidence was tested when she arrived at Duke University in 1982. She entered as a computer science and economics major and immediately felt the shift. And many of her classes were dominated by men who spoke loudly and confidently. In one of her first computer science courses, the professor used a programming language she had never seen before. For a moment, doubt crept in, but it didn't stay. She studied harder, she pushed herself further, she learned quickly. By 1986, she had completed her bachelor's degree. By 1987, she earned her MBA at just 23. Along the way, she spent summers interning at IBM, gaining hands-on experience in large-scale software development and team dynamics. Women were rare in those roles, but Melinda absorbed everything she could. After her second IBM internship, she was offered a full-time position. It was the safe choice, prestigious, stable, predictable. But during her final interview, a manager surprised her by suggesting she consider Microsoft, a smaller, riskier company with enormous ambition. The idea terrified her. Leaving behind a secure future to start over in Seattle felt risky, uncertain, and lonely. Turning down IBM, one of the most powerful technology companies in the world, was not a decision made lightly. But comfort had never been what drove Melinda Gates. Growth did. In 1987, she made the leap, joining Microsoft as a product manager, stepping into a fast-moving company filled with ambition, competition, and possibility. Years later, she would quietly admit that this single choice reshaped the entire direction of her life. Inside Microsoft, Melinda entered a world still being invented. Multimedia was new, experimental, and often misunderstood. She worked long hours, asked difficult questions, and pushed ideas forward in an environment that rewarded bold thinking. One of her first major successes was Cinemania, a CD-ROM movie guide that merged films, trivia, cast biographies, and interactive exploration into one immersive experience. Released in 1992, it sold more than 200,000 copies in its first year, a remarkable achievement at a time when most people were still learning how to use personal computers. Cinemania proved that digital content could be both educational and entertaining, helping redefine how people interacted with media. Then came Encarta. Launched in 1993, it represented a leap forward in digital knowledge. Unlike traditional encyclopedias, Encarta combined text, photographs, audio, and video into a single searchable platform. Melinda oversaw every phase of its creation, from editorial structure to design to user experience. By 1995, Encarta had sold over 1 million copies, becoming a staple in classrooms and households across the world. Students used it for homework, families explored it together. Quietly, Melinda was shaping how an entire generation accessed information, proving that technology could expand curiosity, not just convenience. She also managed a wide range of products that quietly shaped everyday computing, including Microsoft Word, Publisher, Money, and Works. These tools became fixtures in offices, schools, and homes, relied upon by millions who never stopped to wonder who helped bring them to life. Not every project succeeded, and Melinda never pretended otherwise. One of the most ambitious experiments was Microsoft Bob, an attempt to make computers more approachable through a virtual home interface. The idea was bold, but the technology of the time couldn't support it. The product struggled and was eventually discontinued. Instead of treating it as a personal failure, she treated it as information, proof of what worked, what didn't, and what future systems would require. That mindset fueled her rise. By the early 1990s, Melinda had become General Manager of Information Products, overseeing teams of more than 100 people and guiding Microsoft's multimedia division to nearly 90% market share. Her leadership style stood out in a culture known for aggressive competition. She was calm, methodical, and deeply prepared. Promotions came not because of visibility, but because results followed her work. Few outside Microsoft recognized her name, yet millions interacted daily with products shaped by her decisions. Amid this intense professional climb, something deeply personal was unfolding. In 1987, the same year she joined Microsoft, Melinda began dating Bill Gates. Because of strict workplace policies, the relationship remained hidden. There were no public displays, no office gossip, only quiet conversations and a growing intellectual bond. Over 3 years, they built a partnership grounded in shared curiosity, debate, and ambition. On January 1st, 1994, they married on the island of Lanai, Hawaii, in a small, intimate ceremony attended by about 20 guests. There were no grand spectacles, no media frenzy. It was a deliberate choice, reflecting Melinda's preference for substance over show. Even as she married one of the most powerful men in technology, she remained grounded in the identity she had built on her own, one defined by work, discipline, and the quiet confidence to shape her own path. Melinda entered the marriage with clarity and intention. She negotiated a strong prenuptial agreement, not as a shield of mistrust, but as a statement of equality. It reflected the independence she had carried since childhood, the same independence shaped by long weekends painting rental properties, balancing books as a teenager, and carving out her own place in the male-dominated world of technology. She was not stepping into marriage as a supporting character, she was entering as a full partner, determined to preserve her voice, her agency, and her future. By 1996, Melinda found herself standing at a life-defining crossroads. Inside Microsoft, she was no longer a rising executive, she was already at the top. She ran massive divisions, managed thousands of employees, and shaped products used in homes around the world. At the same time, she was pregnant with her first child, navigating the physical and emotional changes of impending motherhood. The corporate environment around her was relentless, loud, and unforgiving, demanding constant attention and unbroken intensity. She realized that continuing on the same path would require sacrificing something deeply personal. She chose to leave. That decision closed a 9-year chapter defined by innovation, competition, and achievement. It also opened the door to a different kind of impact. Walking away from one of the most powerful companies in the world was not an act of retreat, it was an act of intention. Melinda understood that influence could exist beyond boardrooms and balance sheets. Before stepping away, she played a senior role in launching Expedia, an internal Microsoft project that would forever change how people traveled. At a time when booking flights online felt risky and unfamiliar, she believed consumers would embrace digital convenience. That belief proved transformative. By 2025, Expedia Group would reach a market value of nearly $19.4 billion, with billions in annual revenue and global reach. What began as an experimental idea inside Microsoft became a dominant force in online travel, and Melinda's early support helped it take flight. Philanthropy did not arrive all at once. It began quietly. In 1994, the William H. Gates Foundation was established as a modest family initiative. Over the next few years, additional efforts emerged, each focused on education, libraries, and community development. In 1999, these initiatives merged to form the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, launching with an endowment of approximately $17 billion, largely drawn from Microsoft stock. By 2000, that endowment grew to $22 billion, instantly positioning the foundation as a global force. Melinda helped shape its early direction. Education became a cornerstone. Programs like Libraries Online brought computers and internet access to thousands of public libraries across the United States, opening digital doors for families who had never touched a keyboard. Scholarships expanded opportunities for minority students, while education reform grants flowed into the Pacific Northwest, testing new approaches to teaching and learning. Then came Africa. Traveling through countries facing deep health and infrastructure challenges transformed Melinda's understanding of global inequality. She witnessed mothers losing children to preventable diseases and communities struggling without basic care. That experience shifted the foundation's priorities and ultimately her own life's mission. From that moment on, philanthropy was no longer just an extension of wealth. It became a calling rooted in urgency, compassion, and responsibility. Trips to countries like Zambia and Tanzania exposed Melinda to realities statistics couldn't convey. Children dying from preventable diseases, mothers walking miles for basic care. She returned determined to place global health at the center of the foundation's mission. The impact was historic. Working with the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, the foundation helped vaccinate over 100 million children. Polio cases in Pakistan dropped by over 90%, and India was declared polio-free in 2014. Billions were invested in vaccines, maternal health, and family planning. Women's health gradually became the beating heart of Melinda Gates' work. Between 2009 and 2015, more than $1 billion was directed toward contraception and reproductive health programs across Africa and Asia. These efforts were not abstract policy ideas. They reached real women in real communities. Clinics expanded, access improved, and modern family planning methods became available in places where choice had never existed before. As a result, millions of unintended pregnancies were prevented, maternal deaths declined, and entire families gained the ability to plan their futures with dignity and control. For Melinda, this work was deeply personal. She believed that when women are given agency over their bodies, societies rise faster and stronger. The world took notice. In 2016, President Barack Obama awarded Melinda Gates and Bill Gates the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States. It recognized decades of philanthropy that had already transformed global health and education. Around the same time, France honored her with the Legion of Honor, acknowledging her influence far beyond American borders. A woman who once quietly shipped software inside Microsoft was now recognized as one of the most powerful philanthropists on Earth. From the outside, her life appeared purposeful, impactful, and complete. Yet privately, something was breaking. In 2013, Melinda Gates accompanied Bill Gates to Jeffrey Epstein's townhouse in New York. Even then, she felt an immediate sense of unease. Later, she would say the visit made her feel physically sick. She described Epstein as evil personified, a presence that unsettled her to her core. What hurt more deeply was not just that the meeting happened, but that Bill Gates continued to meet with Epstein afterward. For Melinda, this crossed a line. It became a deep fracture in a marriage that already carried unspoken tensions. The pressure intensified in 2019. Microsoft's board launched an investigation into Bill Gates following allegations of an inappropriate relationship with a former employee. At the same time, accusations surfaced involving Cascade Investments, the family's private investment firm, and its longtime manager, Michael Larson. Though wrongdoing was denied, the accumulation of controversies created an emotional storm that Melinda could no longer contain. The worlds of marriage, work, reputation, and power collided all at once. Behind the public calm, Melinda was unraveling. She began suffering from panic attacks and vivid nightmares. Sleep brought no rest. Therapy became a lifeline. Through those sessions, she confronted a truth she had long avoided. Trust had eroded beyond repair. Honesty was no longer present, and without honesty, intimacy and partnership were impossible. The realization was devastating, but clarifying. In late 2019, long before the public knew anything, Melinda Gates quietly began divorce discussions. Lawyers were consulted, options were weighed. The decision was not sudden. It was the result of years of accumulated pain finally reaching its limit. When the announcement came in May 2021, the world was stunned. After 27 years of marriage, it was over. Headlines focused on the staggering settlement, approximately $76 billion, one of the largest in history. But Melinda was focused on something else entirely: freedom. freedom to live honestly, freedom to choose herself. After the divorce, she pledged $1 billion toward women's health and empowerment, signaling that her independence would be used with purpose. In 2024, she stepped down from the Gates Foundation, leaving Bill Gates as sole chair.